Hello everyone, I'm Whitney Farmer. Welcome back. This is Grace's free TOEFL test prep for you. We're very glad that you could join us again today as we go over hopefully some information that will be useful to you as you proceed forward in your preparation to sit and be successful in taking the TOEFL test. Today what I'd like to do is introduce to you a new resource that you might not have found as you were looking through the materials that we've been going over in the past. What I'd like you to do, it's a free student manual. It's a PDF that you can download, or you can simply leave it on your electronic instruments and be able to access though. I think it's very valuable as a resource. So what I want to do is show you where to find it. We have been talking a lot about the mobile app that ETS has put together to support the TOEFL Go app. But what I want to do today instead is direct you to the ets.org website that has a TOEFL section to it, a TOEFL page. So what I'd like to have you do is go to that site, and on your screen you probably can see that opening site when you type it in as a search. It's on ets.org, but it's the TOEFL test site, all right? The page rather. As you look on your screen right now, you see there's three sections. In the middle, kind of a little bit 3/4 of the way down from your page. It says for test takers, for institutions, or for teachers and advisors. Probably all of you, or maybe the majority of you, as if you have gone to this site, you've been clicking on the test taker section. Appropriate. But what I want you to do instead is to go over two different boxes to the for teachers and advisors section and click on that. When you do that, an entirely new menu is pulled down for you. This shows you a number of different resources that you might want to integrate into your studies. Some of them may have application to you, some of them may not, but these are what people like myself would access to be able to put together content that's official content that was already, vetted by ETS themselves. Again, they're the ones who built this test, so it's important to go to their resources to make sure that you're getting the highest and best use of your time, I would say, in my opinion. So on the quick links here, this is a screenshot of what will happen when you pull this up on your various devices. There's a couple of different things I want to point out to you before we go to the next slide. First of all, it shows that there is an advisor toolkit. There's different research, descriptions about the TOEFL test, conferences and events. Those wouldn't apply to you. Those apply to educational professionals who were involved in this. But if you go down there and you click on the advisor toolkit, gentlemen, what happens when you do that is that there are a number of different resources that come up. One of them, which I think is going to be hopefully very valuable to you, is this. This is an 88-page PDF. It is a book that is free to you, and you can download it. On our various communication platforms, WhatsApp, Facebook groups, etc., there have been questions about what other resources you can be referred to assist you in your preparation. And I'm not sure if any of you have seen this one particularly. I know that there's been a conversation about going to bookstores and getting into that information and how much money you should spend. But again, my position, I think the position of all of us here, is wherever possible, reduce the amount of cost that you're accruing as a result of your preparation, as long as it's quality in terms of the materials that you're using. This is developed by ETS themselves, the builders of this test. So this is reverse engineering that you can access to help you succeed. Yeah? So this is the first page. This is the title page that you'll be able to look at and know that you're on the right path. Next, what you'll find in this, the format of it is different than you have probably seen on the mobile app and other kinds of like flyers and entry-level materials to support your work. It's much more academic. It's much more dense in terms of the content. Those of you who are already professionals, whether you are in healthcare industry or engineering or architecture or whatever are the various professions that you have where you're seeking reciprocal licensure or certification in an English-speaking country through your TOEFL scores, this type of a format might be more comfortable for you because you might already be more used to an academic, scholastic environment. Those of you who are going to be pursuing higher education, this is a format that you definitely need to be more familiar with and comfortable with. Something that's much more dense in terms of content, presented with perhaps less graphics, less flashy colors, more written, scholarly type of a presentation, okay? Some of the things that you'll find, though, in this, I want to give you an overview of this I think, a terrific handbook. First of all, you've got how to act, what to do about your, how to start your preparations. You know, you choose your destination. It even starts, like I was saying, right in the beginning of your preparation. How to even register for it, what to expect from that. And step one in that process is you choose your destination. Some of you have multiple places where you can test because you're perhaps in a metropolitan area or somewhere where there's a dense population that is more commonly accessed for this type of procedure. Some of you might not have that as much access, but if you do have the option of destination, it's great to be able to select something that is close to you and that is comfortable for you. To let you know also, on this section, which is for advisors or teachers, if you scroll down the menu, then you can also find that there is a way to request vouchers if you are connected to some sort of a larger organization who wants to perhaps move a chunk of your employee population to an English-speaking country for some project, and you want to have them have the appropriate vetting within their profession, then what you can do as an organization or an institution or an employer, you can actually request vouchers where you're going to pay in bulk for the test for your employees, as an example. If you're one of those people, a decision maker who can allocate those resources, then what will happen is you can request vouchers that you will give out to the people that you as a representative have elected to pay for. Another thing that can happen if you again are connected to an organization or an institution and there's enough of a student population who want to take this test in your area, but there isn't a good site established yet for a regular testing procedure, you can also work with ETS, the builder, the developer of TOEFL, to be able to establish a testing date at your location. And it has to be in a way that's secure, that's vetted, the proctoring must be confirmed so that therefore the test results are accurate, valid, as supportable within the profession. But I wanted to let you know that because some of you might be involved in a nonprofit organization who's involved in education, or you might be involved in some sort of an educational institution or a larger employer within a country, a larger business entity within a country. So I wanted to let you know that on an institutional level, there are some options that you can access through ETS to facilitate the testing, okay? So then on this, again, this starts from the beginning. Choose your destination. Know what the deadlines and the requirements are for that destination, including what is the communication that's going to be happening that you need to do, what are the transportation routes to get you where you need to be if you're going to be accessing public transportation. What kind of identification are you required to bring to make sure you're the valid test taker when you arrive on the testing date? Decide when and where you're going to take the test. Then you register for it online. You want to have about 3 to 4 months lead time before your testing date. So give yourself enough time to do that. I know that it sounds like a vast amount of time, but it can run up on you quickly, especially if you're involved in the preparation as well. And then after you register and you have your date confirmed and you've paid the fees, either through a voucher program, through a company or an organization, then you begin your preparation and your practice. Okay? Next, please. Also, in this document, there are checklists that take you as a countdown beginning 8 weeks before the testing date, so 2 months, and it takes you on a countdown 8 weeks, 7 weeks, 6 weeks, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So it in a broad way gives you a structure of what activities you need to participate in or you are recommended to participate in to enhance your possibility of success. So this format is, again, pretty clinical, but you can actually just check things off and you can write boxes and that sort of thing. But it gives you an understanding of what is a good, proven method for preparation to increase your possibility of success. All right? Next, please. After this checklist area, it gets into both general as well as specific ideas, preparation, recommendations, strategies, tactics, specifically for you, that in all the various sections. So as we know, the TOEFL has 4 different sections, and each of those sections might have a different activity that is recommended to improve your results. So what happens is there are, in each of the sections, this document that you download includes general information on how to strengthen your skills in that section. Then it gives more specific targeted information, and then it gives you specific activities targeted for various aspects of the skill building necessary to succeed. All right? So let's say you're very comfortable with the speaking part, but you're less comfortable with the listening part. Or you're very comfortable with the reading part, but you're uncomfortable and a bit shy when it comes to the speaking part. So you can concentrate on what area of expertise you want to develop, and you can strengthen those that you're weak on, and you can perhaps be more relaxed on those that you already feel more than proficient on. All right? So this is an example of some information that's given regarding the general listening activities, and I thought it was interesting. It says, we've been talking about this before, but this is again officially what ETS is saying will help you improve. It's not just Whitney's opinion, and they confirm that for me, which I'm glad. It says you might want to try these different kinds of general activities to improve your listening skills. You listen to different kinds of material on a variety of topics, increasing in length and difficulty. Start with recordings on familiar topics and gradually progress to topics that are new to you. First, listen to conversations, television shows, movies, and then listen to programs with academic content, such as NPR and BBC broadcasts. Start with short segments and progress to longer segments. We've talked about where you're going to get your content from. There are so many different types of media out there, and this test, again, is not built for casual conversation necessarily at all. You might have casual conversations in a university setting, but there still will be a grounding, a foundation of an academic discourse. And so what this specifically pointed out were 2 sources: NPR, which is in America, National Public Radio. NPR in America is a very valuable resource for you. I think I told you when I first moved to Los Angeles from the north of the Seattle area, when I moved to LA, I started listening to the NPR station, which was broadcast from Santa Monica Community College. And it exposed me to terrific news as well as new types of music and just very dense, rich programming. And I was thrilled about it. But also NPR as a media outlet includes different kinds of articles and research publication that you can access online. NPR is a publicly, governmentally funded, it's actually a combination of a government, public, and private partnership of funding. The purpose of it is to provide unbiased information that doesn't support one political view or another, because it's supposed to represent the government as well as private donor money. So it's supposed to be non-biased in its information, and there's different opinions of everything these days, one way or the other, but NPR, that's their marching orders, is that they are to be a public radio outlet. Okay, originally radio, but now it's also into other things as well. All right, and then also they talk in this section about BBC. What is the BBC? BBC is British Broadcasting Corporation. That is the government arm of the same type of media in England, in Britain. And BBC does have radio, they do have written content, as well as visual content through television productions. So both of those, again, those two types of media, if you're talking about English-speaking countries, NPR is an excellent representation of American-based English language content, and the BBC is an excellent representation of British-based English-speaking content. And both theoretically are going to be non-biased because of where the funding comes to support the efforts. Okay? Anyway, I wanted to give you that as an example. Next, please. After the general ideas for activities you can do, it gets also into each of the sections more targeted, specific activities that you can do. So there's broad recommendations that you can integrate in terms of your framework of your patterns of behavior, right? But then specifically you can improve and get varied variables that will increase your performance in different ways in all the different sections. This is just an example of one of the targeted activities that are listed in the writing section as an example. This discusses the concept of paraphrasing, which a few classes ago, when we were talking about the writing sample, I was telling you that you can pull in important paraphrased content and include that in your essay information. If you have some well-respected, relatively broad content that you've memorized, paraphrased, and you quote it in your essay, you can do that as long as you do it in the right way. This tells you some specifics regarding this because it's an academic environment. So you have to be careful in how you paraphrase. If you're doing a direct quote, there needs to be appropriate citation, etc. So what it describes here is, in this targeted writing activity, paraphrasing, I'll read it to you. In your academic classes, you must be careful never to plagiarize, which is copying another writer's words without acknowledging the source. I think you'll see in the content that as I'm talking about things, I use a great deal of material from ETS themselves, and I'll tell you, and there's a disclaimer at the beginning of this, ETS is material, and if I do a cut and paste of content, then I keep like the author's information or citation on it. It's very important to honor the craftsman. And in an academic environment, it's more than just important, it's absolutely required. In university environment, you probably know this, if you cite something without acknowledging, honoring the original source, that can be like, scholastically, that can be the last thing you do for a while, so it can be very important. It can cause significant problems in an academic environment. And so, again, that's the environment we're talking about. What you can do if you're not doing a direct quote, which as a definition in an academic situation is usually considered more than 6 words directly from an author. If you're paraphrasing, It would be something that is, you can use 5 words from the original author and then paraphrase beyond that. That could be a paraphrase. Otherwise, it's a direct citation. You need to give that. So paraphrasing is when you express ideas from something that's a source material, but in your own words. So if you have something that's 5 words of the author's words and then your own words, then you're okay to consider it a paraphrase. And you can say, to paraphrase Abraham Lincoln, or to quote Abraham Lincoln. That means that you're saying something that is 6 words or more, just as a reference point. You can practice paraphrasing words, phrases, sentences, and entire paragraphs frequently using the following activities, okay? Learn to find synonyms. Pick 10 to 15 words of phrases in a passage and quickly think of synonyms without looking them up in a dictionary or a thesaurus. So what you can do then is as you're reading something, say it's a newspaper or what have you, let's say you come to a word that you're not familiar with. Write that word in a notebook on the side. And then once you learn what is the definition to that word, develop, investigate, research 10 to 15 words or phrases that can be a synonym, that can be substituted out in that passage to convey the same meaning. That can help build your vocabulary, okay? So that's an idea about one activity that you might want to integrate for yourself in the writing section. Next, please. Additionally, not only in preparation, but what I liked about this publication was that it also included information both before the testing day, the day before the testing day, in terms of like as a human being, how do you get ready for this event? You're like an athlete, and sometimes I think that it's important. Actually, I think it's always important for us to remember that we need to take care of our health in the midst of these challenges to be able to perform as best as we possibly can and optimally. And then it also talks about sitting in the test, what it's like, and it talks about what happens after the test. So like I said, I think that you might find this to be very valuable. This, on your screen, you might see an example of what it's talking about, what it's giving you in terms of wisdom for what are the tips to take before the testing day. What do you need to do? Set your alarm early. Get plenty of rest. Sometimes people cram the night before. By that time, if you're talking 8 weeks to 3 months ahead of time, the night before, depriving yourself of sleep is not going to increase your probability of success. Yeah? So get some sleep if you possibly can, all right? If you have trouble getting up, ask a friend to give you a call. My husband, he sets 4 alarms on his phone. So he snoozes his alarm 4 times, and it's just what he does. So, and then he still doesn't want to get out of bed. So everyone's got their own personal, physical habits or challenges. So whatever yours are, you again want to craft your day so that you can perform optimally, okay? Get plenty of rest. Don't stay up too late. Avoid caffeine the night before the test. Probably a good idea to avoid caffeine after 3 p.m. the night before your test. So that means that if you drink coffee in the afternoon with your friends or tea or have chocolate, whatever has caffeine in it, if you partake in caffeine, you want to have that consumption end as a general rule before 3 p.m. the day before the test. That way your sleeping pattern theoretically is not going to be interrupted by caffeine, right? Maybe just plain old-fashioned nerves, but the caffeine won't be responsible. Also, eat a good meal. You want to make sure that you have good solid protein and also some good complex carbohydrates, perhaps a piece of fruit, not necessarily just juice, because you want to have relatively stable blood sugar and a protein base plus enough of a complex carbohydrate that your body can break apart for energy is going to sustain you well in the testing environment. Think of yourself as an elite athlete in this situation. It's a high stakes moment for you. There's a lot on the line for you, even though you can take the test again in the future. But this moment is the moment you want to excel at. So think of yourself as an athlete and sleep, take care of yourself, hydrate. Even if you're nervous, get some good food in yourself before you sit for that event. All right? Next, please. There are very few graphics, as I would describe them, in this this handbook. But the graphics that are there, I think, are very helpful. And as we know, when you see graphic content, it's easier to understand what is being conveyed. And so the graphics that are included, they're not flashy, I wouldn't say. They're more academic, and I think they're very useful. And this is an example of test day tips, all right? So all this written content, this dense content of information presented in a written format. There are some parts in this PDF document, this 88-page document, that actually are presented graphically in a way I think is very helpful to you. So this is an example of one of them, test day tips. Number 1, plan your trip and how to do that, then the written content. Number 2, your testing site. Arrive early, make sure that you're ready for this. And there is going to be a photo taken of you when you before you take your test. After you take your test, you'll probably not look your best, just like an athlete after a long game, right? But before you take your test, they actually will be taking a photo of you to verify identity. So be prepared for that. If you want to have a comb in your purse or your back pocket, then just be aware that they are going to be taking a test. The purpose of it is to identify you as who you say you are, and they'll compare those with your original registration materials. But just wanted to let you know that. Also, the testing station describes what that testing station is going to be like, and then you're going to sit for that test. And so this one-page document of graphics it's a quick reference for you to be able to understand what it's going to be like, again, when you sit there for that test. The more you expose yourself to these kinds of things, the less your response will be, you need to say a fear response, which is fight or flight. When you have your adrenaline surge because of an unfamiliar environment and you're ready for whatever. And all that energy and all those various neurochemicals that are going to be flooding into your system are going to be a lot of wear and tear that's unnecessary. Keep all that energy, all that energetic metabolic response available to you for the testing moment, not the other stuff, the ancillary inputs that you're going to be faced with. Make sure you know where you're going. Make sure you arrive ahead of time so you're not nervous. Make sure you have a comb so you're ready for a photograph. Make sure you've got a bit of food in your stomach so that you're not going to get lightheaded and low blood sugar. Make sure you're hydrated so you don't get thirsty and interfere with your concentration. So simple stuff, but I think it's important to be reminded of these things. Yeah? All right. Next, please. Okay, this is again what we were talking about, that there is specific dense content in this manual that I think is very useful. And as you read this content, as you read it, then you also are improving your English skills at the same time. So it's not necessarily the first thing that you might want to be involved with as you're doing your test preparation, but as you progress in your mastery of English, this kind of content will be much more comfortable for you because you will have started building not just the structure of your English acquisition, but also you'll be filling that structure with the valuable information that you've acquired, such as vocabulary and verb conjugations and sentence structure and pronunciation and all that sort of thing. So this again is how much of the material in this manual is presented. So I just wanted you to be familiar with that. So general test taking tips. Know the directions to each section before you sit for it. Yeah. Click on help if you need it, only when necessary though, because the test clock doesn't stop when you use the help function. That's important. I, once upon a time, not this test, but before I was going to grad school, I needed to take a graduate admissions test, and frankly, I wasn't diligent in my preparation for it. I was very casual, I was busy, so I just signed up for the test. I showed up for the test, and this is not this test, but what I did, it was a computer-based environment, and what I typically, throughout my life as a scholar, have done is I'll go through a test rapidly, boom, 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 and then I'll go back and I'll recheck my answers to verify that I didn't misunderstand the question in the first place and that I accurately checked or gave the answer that I wanted to give. So I did that, but then I hadn't familiarized myself with that testing environment. Before you go out and buy some educational company's book on preparation, use this one first. Like I said, it was free to download. There are parts of it that will say it'll encourage you to buy other content that is developed by ETS. I'm not saying don't do that because, again, they are the builders of this test. So it is beneficial to you to access their reverse engineering on their recommendations on how to be successful. But first of all, completely exhaust all of the free content that they have for you. I think all of us need to be economic these days. Next, please. Okay, this PDF document, as a reminder, it is downloadable for free, but it is, however, 88 pages in length. So if you do decide to print it, it will cost you for your printing paper as well as for the ink. Okay, so just as a reminder. So if it's on your computer or on your laptop or on your cell phone, and you're comfortable reading from an electronic screen, it's a great way to go. Okay? So give it a shot, just see what happens. Now, next, please. As we talked last week, one of the ways that you can learn English is just by being with people who are native speakers and just having relaxed conversations. And last week we read the newspaper, and so this week I thought that we could read a newspaper again, yeah? So I pulled up some information from the Los Angeles Times, or the LA Times as we call it, where I live, because it's the closest major metropolitan area to where I personally live. And I thought that we would just have a cup of tea together again and go through the newspaper, and you can hear how a native speaker talks, and we can discuss some of the content that I found in today's paper from September 29th from the Los Angeles Times. First of all, I was going to show you the front page, and I was going to go through, but a lot of the stories were just heavy stories that we all have stuff going on in our lives, and there's a lot of major heaviness happening right now in terms of news content, and I wanted to veer away from that a little bit and give you more of an understanding of culturally what's up. So first of all, this is a picture, and it's of surfing dogs, and I live here in Huntington Beach, and yesterday there was the Surf Dog Championships. What are the Surf Dog Championships, you say? We actually have dogs that surf here in Huntington Beach, and there are so many of them that they actually compete for championships, just like human surfers. And this is a picture of two of the competitors, and it says this is Gidget, Wright, and Derby on the left. They ride in a heat, which means a preliminary match, of the Surf City Surf Dog Contest at the Huntington Beach Pier. The canine competitors had 12 minutes to catch their top 5 waves and to be judged by a celebrity panel. And I thought that was a great picture. And it says Bow Wowabunga, and you, I'm sure, don't know what that means, but I wanted to give you an understanding why it's important to read newspapers in English, because there are some cultural things you'll be exposed to that you wouldn't understand otherwise. Bow Wowabunga. What that refers to is, first of all, bow wow is what we say is the sound a dog makes. Bow wow when they bark, ruff, ruff, or ruff, ruff. They say bow wow or ruff, ruff. Each different culture will say what are the sounds that an animal's mouth makes when they emote. So in English we say bow wow or ruff, ruff. Or grrr. All right, so bow wow. So it's referring to dogs. But if you hear what's said, bow wowabunga, this is a stretch, but I want to let you know, as a native speaker, I know exactly what this means where I live because we have surfers here. Cowabunga is a phrase that is popular in surf culture. There used to be a TV show in the 50s called Howdy Doody. It was a little cowboy puppet, and he had various friends, and one of his friends, when he was startled or he would exclaim, he'd say, Cowabunga. Cowabunga is actually a derivative of a term that comes from the Hawaiian native language, and it was adopted by surfers who were children in the 50s, and then as they became teenagers in the 60s, they remembered watching Howdy Doody on TV in the 50s, and so in the 60s, as surfers, they would tell each other, Cowabunga, when they were like excited, like it was a great wave, Cowabunga, or they were happy, or they'd greet each other, they'd say, Cowabunga, and they'd do this, right, which means I'm okay, you're okay. Cowabunga, man, dude, the waves are pumping, right? And a little bit further on, in like the 90s, first of all, there were a series of comic books developed by a guy named Kevin Eastman called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And they were these turtles, I think you might be familiar with them, that because of radiation exposure became superheroes. And they had names of famous Italian artists, Raphael, Michelangelo, and Donatello. Donatello, by the way, is my favorite Italian sculptor. But we're speaking of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right? The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles would say, "Cowabunga, dude." That referred back to the surfing culture, which referred back to the show called Howdy Doody in the 50s, which pulled this word, changed it a bit, but derived it from an original expression in Hawaiian. And Hawaii, at that point, was part of America, newly integrated state. So, yeah, so that's a stretch, right? Now, as a native speaker, I look at that, boom, I know what it's saying. You would not know that, but I wanted you to know that. So you're going to learn these strange little things if you read newspapers or magazines in the native tongue, all right? So, yeah, we've got dogs that surf here. So America's pretty great to be in, so come and join us. Anyway, next, please. This is another, I just took some photos, I want to show you some more content. There was a section here that's talking about things that are familiar that are taken from a different perspective. This is actually a photo of the Dead Sea in Israel taken from an altitude of 4,000 feet. And it shows all the rivers and tributaries going into it, which looked like a tree. And so there was a gentleman named Don Delson who took this photo from 4,000 feet in altitude above the Dead Sea, and he entitled it The Tree of Life. I thought it was a great picture, but it appears in the paper today, so I wanted to show you that. Next, please. And that photo is included in a pictorial of Fresh Perspective, and this shows a couple more different photos that are included there. That at first glance, you don't know what they are, and I thought they were very intriguing. The one at the top of your screen, it looks like perhaps a bookcase, with books lined up. It actually, they are shipping containers from the port of Long Beach, nearby here, which is the third largest port in the United States. But from a high perspective, those are what shipping containers look like. They look like children's toys or crayons or books in the library. I think that was interesting. And then below that on your screen, you can see another picture, which looks like an abstract painting, like by Mirabeau or something. I thought it was really interesting. But it's actually an aerial view of a water park where you've got pools and slides and fountains and such. So anyway, so I thought that was an interesting story. Next, please. Pomegranate tea. This is another section of the newspaper. It's art and entertainment and music, and this section is talking about some gentlemen who are jazz musicians, and they're involved in a composition that honors Jackie Robinson. I'm not sure if you know who Jackie Robinson is, but he's very important in American history. You know how we've talked about how people can get better with time, how countries can get better with time, how you can become better, stronger, faster, wiser tomorrow than you were today. That's the hope. That's the prayer. Jackie Robinson was the first African-American baseball player to cross the racial line and be a player in the major leagues of baseball and integrated. Before Jackie Robinson, in America, we had the Negro Baseball League, and then we had everybody else, and it was split like that. It's a travesty. And Jackie Robinson was the first one to cross that line, that racial line, and he played for the Brooklyn Dodgers. And he broke the color barrier. Very important. He was a trailblazer, and he started on a course that set a new life for a number of different players, and culturally, it was a very important moment. So these gentlemen are involved in composing music that honors Jackie Robinson's memory. By the way, the Brooklyn Next, please. Another story I thought was interesting is just discussing, there's a book these scientists have done that discusses growing up as across multiple species, growing from childhood into adulthood across multiple species. And it's just their discussion of those difficult transition teenage years. So, yeah, next please. Thank you. Sure, come on. Next please. Yeah, okay. This is a new book. This is a review of a new book called Year of the Monkey by a cultural icon named Patti Smith, who I adore her. I think she's amazing. And it's kind of ironic that she's viewed as being a cultural icon now. Once upon a time, she was like a kid who moved to New York. I think she wanted to become famous as a poet. I mean, who moves to, I wish in our world that it was more easy to become famous as a poet. But she went to New York to become a poet and ended up becoming a rock and roll star. She played in she was one of the first punk rockers that that public consciousness became aware of. And she's just great. She just had some great music. And then also, though, she's always had this writing instinct, this writing part of her life. And she not only was involved as a poet and as a rock and roll, punk rocker, and then rock and roll celebrity, icon, then also she's been involved in other kinds of artistic, photography and mixed media, and she's still a writer. And so what I think is really interesting, I think in a way, she's a model of a type of life that I hope can actually be represented in America. It was interesting, a few days ago, my husband asked me a question that made me pause. He looked at me, as I've told you, he's Italian. And he said, what was it like for you to be born in America? And I never thought of it. What is it like to be born as an American? Not to, become an American, to choose, but simply to be born into this status. And it was interesting, I was thinking about that, and I had never thought of it before. And there is a part of one of our foundational documents that says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And when he asked me that question, the pursuit of happiness came to my memory. And to me, being born into America as an American, I thought to myself, I assumed that I would be pursuing happiness in my life. Very simple. It wasn't that I wouldn't connect with people, help others, be of service, but I assumed that pursuing happiness was a part of everybody's life. As a child, I just made that assumption. It was interesting. So what I'm saying is that with Patti Smith, what is interesting about her is she, to me, represents, hopefully in my country, what can be a pattern all of us can follow. How we start out on a certain path and things happen, and we don't abandon our original dreams, our original vision, but we can reshape it and expand it and still carry it along with us, but into renewed opportunity. And that's what I see with her. She wasn't just a poet. She used her poetry to write lyrics, and then she used her lyrics because she could, just to front a punk rock band, and the punk rock band became famous, and so then that allowed her to connect with other artists and da-da-da-da. So that to me would be a story that I would say, Lord willing, would be a good American story. Yeah? So anyway, I like Patti Smith, obviously. Next, please. And then that was a picture, actually. It was a picture of a of a place that was talking about, it's a travel section in the LA Times today, and it showed a picture of a place which used to be an old reform school. That we're getting into Halloween, and people, set up these haunted houses for kids to go to, and they're going to be setting up this place in Iona, California, as a haunted house, and they showed a picture of it. But I thought it was interesting because this place was where a famous country western star by the name of Merle Haggard, when he was a troubled youth, actually was sent to as a reform school. Now, in America, what has in the past happened is when you're under a certain age, whether it's 16 depending on a crime, or under 18 depending on a crime, you are not sent to jail and prison. You're sent to a reform school. You're sent to a different kind of an institution that hopefully helps you change so that you can have a different future. And Merle Haggard, he was a very poor young man when he was a kid living in Bakersfield. His dad died when he was 9 years old, and he was just shattered by it. So he started running away, getting in trouble, getting into burglaries, and then running away once he'd go into reform schools, and just had problem after problem. He ended up in San Quentin. And because of his past bad behavior that was on record, he was sent to San Quentin for 15 years, which is a maximum security prison in California. While he was there, he met Johnny Cash. And Johnny Cash is another famous singer in America. It's just an amazing, Johnny Cash is just another icon who's very important. And he was playing for the inmates in San Quentin, and Merle Haggard heard him and decided, I can have a different life. And instead of trying to break out of San Quentin, he decided to become a model citizen within the prison, access resources there. He was paroled out instead of being there for 15 years because he turned his life around so dramatically there, and it was visible. He got out after 2.5 years, got out, had learned to be a musician while he was there, write lyrics, connected with different people in the music industry in Bakersfield, particularly Buck Owens. Anyway, became a famous, successful country western musician, and he just died a couple years ago. So I thought that was interesting. So another American story. So next, please. And last week when we were talking about newspapers, I neglected to show you that on Sundays in American papers, a lot of times you have comic strips. And a lot of times they have multiple colors, and so they're, when you're reading the heavy, heavy news about this problem and this political issue and whatever, you open up the comics and it can put you in a good mood. So I wanted to show you, this is what a typical comics page would look like in America. Next, please. I took out some samples for you to see, which I wanted to describe these, the reason I brought them out. This is one panel from one of the comics. So what it shows is the young lady is saying, I really don't think this is going to protect us from the political spin cycle. What is a political spin cycle? Well, in America, that's a colloquial expression which refers to this politician says this politician says this, and there's this constant churning in the atmosphere, and it's hard to figure out what's true and what's false, and sometimes you just go crazy because people, as citizens, we want to have correct, true information to be able to make informed decisions and to vote the right way, yeah? And it's just frustrating, and I think everyone's so tired of it. So this little girl, she's saying, I don't think this is going to help us, protect us from the political spin cycle. And you have her little friend who's looks like a little reptile going like this, and then she's going like this, and her little cat friend is going like this. What that refers to, and again, this is why I want to point out again that no culture, no country operates and develops in isolation. Every single culture, every single country, every single language is a result of interaction with others. This is how human beings do this. This refers to three monkeys, the three monkey fable of see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. That is, the idea is that in a bad situation, I don't want to look at it, I don't want to hear it, and I don't want to speak it. So those three monkeys, though, which is very common in an American environment, that goes back to, I think, about 2000 BC in China. And that original, there's some dispute as to who originated this fable of the three monkeys, you know, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. It goes back to China, probably 2000 BC. But then also in Japan, there's a temple that has different panels, and one of the 8 panels includes a carving of these monkeys. And so Japan has claimed that they are the originators of it. And yet historically, there's been a great deal of cultural integration and contact between mainland China and Japan, sometimes because of trade, regular business activity, sometimes because of military contact in a negative way, but however it is, people end up learning from each other. And somehow that from there then came to Turkey, and then it came to and now in America on a comic strip, perhaps 4,000 years after it was originally, the concept was created. Yeah, and here we are. So anyway, next please. Also, I thought this was cute because, okay, so some of you, Myrna, I'm speaking to you as an example. She submitted to me a few weeks ago, she had submitted to me for all of us to listen to, God bless her, a clip of herself speaking as an example of this speaking section, a test of it. And in the background, you could hear her children, you know, being kids, being regular kids. All of you are somehow preparing for this in the midst of your regular life. You're somehow able to do it. I just wanted to give you some sympathy and some comedy in the midst of that. So what this says is the wife on the upper corner is asking her husband, how was your annual physical? Which meant he went to the doctor. You call it a physical. And once a year, annually, in America, generally, you go to the doctor just to have a general check about everything that's going on with your body. Okay, then he says, the doc, which is short for doctor, we'll say the doc says, the doctor says, I have a slight hearing loss, he says. Well, in the middle panels, you can see the environment that he's speaking in. You've got their kids screaming, give it back, I had it first, no you didn't, mom, fighting, blah, blah, blah. You know, all this environment, yeah? The bottom right panel is the last of this panel, and he says, regarding his hearing loss that the doctor reported to him, he says, I am perfectly fine with it. Now what that means, when you say you're perfectly fine with something in English, it's a colloquial expression meaning that I'm not bothered by it, I am not upset by it, I have no problems with it, I accept it, and I actually welcome it. So that he has a problem hearing, he's glad about it. He welcomes it because of where he lives right now with the kids screaming, right? So that's, again, you get expressions that you might not get ordinarily, you can get in the newspaper, colloquial expressions, more casual communication. Okay, next please. And this is the last panel I wanted to show you. You are in places all over this world. I don't know where you're at. Where I live here in Southern California, Surf City, we do have seasons, but they're not as dramatic. Where I used to live in Seattle, I saw on the news they've got huge snowstorms right now. And other places, what you're seeing is the trees are starting to change colors, and the leaves are changing, which happens during autumn. And where I live here, some trees change, but we have a lot of palm trees and a lot of eucalyptus, deciduous trees. We have some conifers, and they don't drop leaves. We don't have a lot of the the maples or the aspen or the oak and those types of things. So our indigenous trees here, a lot of time, actually not indigenous, but the most commonly planted trees here, because palm trees aren't from California, to let you know. But the most commonly seen trees here don't necessarily exhibit the change of season. But a couple days ago, we actually, all of us have now entered into fall. So we're all going to be looking at a change of our season. Whether you actually see it or not, or even feel it or not, I wanted to let you all know that you're in a new season now. We all are. So I'm looking forward to that for all of us. Okay? Next, please. I wanted to let you know your homework. All I would like you to do is to go onto ets.org's website, go onto the TOEFL page, and on that page, click on where it says resources for teachers and advisors, not students. And when that menu pulls down, click on to get to that resource for that student manual that you can download. Integrate that resource into your regular preparation activities. It might be just what you need to finish off and get you where you need to be, okay? Next, our class, the next time we'll have a chance to be together, is actually going to be in 3 weeks. For the next 2 weeks, I'll be involved, our family's involved in a gathering. So next Sunday, I will not be able to be in front of you again, and the Sunday after that, I won't have an opportunity to be in front of you again either. So in 3 weeks, we will come together again, okay? In the time that we're not together, why don't you review some of the previous videos that we put together and put your questions out there to me or to all of us to discuss on our WhatsApp platform, our groups there, or on Facebook groups. So let's not stop your preparation. Maybe take a bit of a break for yourself, but don't stop it. You don't want to lose ground. You don't want to lose territory, right? So I want to make sure we continue on our progress. But the next time that we'll have an opportunity to be face-to-face will be on Sunday, October the 20th. And we'll meet again from 11:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, all right? So all of us here, we are so glad to be a part of your lives during this time, of your season in your life, and we hope for the best for you, and we are so glad that you were able to join us today. And for now, until we have an opportunity to be together again, may peace be with you.